So, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly podcast. At least at this moment, we're trying to maintain this weekly for our diaspora Bangladesh community to discuss our political aspects and Bangladeshi political context. And today is a special show. We have organized three of our really gorgeous, active, super diaspora women who were actively involved with July uprising, but maybe their involvement dimension and their involvement or engagement level was different. But they were involved with the total July uprising. And we will go to the conversation. We will know how they get involved, what was their understanding, what was their emotional dimension at that moment. But before that, let me introduce with our three gorgeous women, Zeehan, Muna, and Salwa. Let me start with Zeehan. Zeehan, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit. Zeehan.
Sure. Thank you, Parul, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm feeling a little bit insecure because I don't know if I'm really worthy to be part of this, but my name is Zeehan. I am here in Melbourne. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today and respect elders, both past and present. I have been here for the last 4 years and I have lived in the US, so I have that diaspora community, Bangladeshi diaspora community in Washington, D.C. and East Coast. And after moving to Melbourne, I also got in touch with the Bangladeshi community here in Melbourne. So I think I'll just leave it at there and I'll talk a little bit more later on.
If you could just tell us that how long before you left Bangladesh or when was that happening?
Hey.
Yeah, a little bit of that one.
So I left Bangladesh when I was 10 years old. I lived in Jahangirnagar campus with Parul actually, when a long time ago. So my home away from home is in Jahangirnagar campus. But then I grew up in Brunei most of my teenage life, and then I moved to the US when I was 18, and then I did my university and work and everything, and then I moved to Melbourne just 4 years ago. So yeah, so we can call ourselves a third culture kids because we have serious identity issues. We're Bangladeshis, we're American, we're Bruneians, but we, at the end of the day, our core is always Bangladeshi, and our Dan is always from there. So.
That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to know, Zihan. Thank you for sharing that. Muna, let's go to Muna. If you could just orient yourself a bit short.
Yeah. Thank you, Apu, for bringing me here. I'm a PhD researcher in climatology at the University of Delaware, and I study offshore wind here. And I finished my undergrad in mechanical engineering from BUET. I finished my undergrad in 2016. Then I came here in 2021. And yeah, I've been living here since then. So this is my background.
That's great, Mona. Okay, if I go to Salwa.
Hi, my name is Salwa. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. And as Munapo, I'm kind of self-conscious because I feel like I'm not worthy of this platform. So my name is Salwa. I came to Australia 4 years ago. I have a bachelor's degree in IT and a master's degree in international business from Australia. I was born and I grew up in Saudi Arabia. So I grew up with Arabic as my first language. I had Zeehan Apu, I didn't have any connection to Bangladesh almost all my life until I got married 5 years ago. My husband is from Dhaka. So, and that kind of started to reconnect to Bangladesh. But however, even when I was in Saudi Arabia, I always have this knack for, that kind of social awareness about the situations of migrants even in Saudi Arabia, right? And yeah, so I think for us second generation migrants, it's always we are never home. I'm never home. I always have this identity crisis. I'm not Saudi, I'm not full Saudi, I'm not full Bangladeshi, and now I'm living in Australia, so that adds another thing into the mix. So it's never, but I come to this realization that I'm Bangladeshi as well in the core, and that will always be my identity. So this realization came very late in my life, but I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, that's
I
really
feel like I can talk to you
fascinating to
guys
know.
for, I feel
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
can talk to you guys for hours and hours. So much to talk about.
Yeah, especially Salwa and Zeehan, both of you has so much common to the grew up environment and the other stuffs. But I feel really shaky today, frankly speaking. Like, okay, because personally, I know you guys, you were so brilliant and so unique in your area. Okay, let's not go in there. Let's focus on this today's session. So, why did I ask about your background? That look at Salwa. She just born in a completely different country, grew up in a completely different country. Zeehan, she left Bangladesh at the 10 years old. At the same time, I saw in July the way we connected, the way we reconnected with Bangladesh and the Bangladeshi diaspora, and we cried, we prayed for the people of Bangladesh, what is happening. How that happened, that was my question. That's the reason I organized today's conversation. I really want to know from you guys what exactly you guys feel. So I want to start with Muna. Excuse me. Maybe I will go for different question. Muna, if you could just tell us how you were involved in this July uprising.
Uh, yeah, so I'm very connected to the Bangladeshi political situation throughout my life. I always study political situation. I'm very politically aware, but I knew that something was happening related to quota movement. But I felt like, okay, maybe it will be yet another failed movement. So I followed, but I was not emotionally involved. Then one day, one morning, I just woke up to the video of Abu Said's killing, and I think it's the same situation for all of the diaspora community. They saw the video live and they felt very shaken, and I was really shocked. I just woke up, and the day before I got news from my Bangladesh that one of my relatives has died. So I was already in a very shaky situation. Then I saw the video and I was really shaking. I started crying. I just started crying in the morning. And I had a plan to go to my office and start my working as usual, but I did not go. I just stayed in bed all day and I just cried that what is happening in Bangladesh. And it was 16 July, right? We got the so it was 16 July, and we did not know what to do, and people were talking here and there. What should we do? Should we go to embassy or should we demonstrate in the university campus? Every university had some demonstrations going on. So I felt that in the university campus, demonstrating in the university campus is not enough. So on 18th July, I just went to the Bangladesh embassy at DC. I did not know some other people will also come, but I saw people are coming from around different universities, and we demonstrated. And the embassy people were taking pictures of us in their cell phones, and we were okay, do that. We don't care. And in the next day, I again went to DC. It is not very close from us. It is 2 or 2.5 hours drive, but I went back-to-back days. Then I felt, okay, maybe there are many people who will go to DC and demonstrate. I have to go in a different direction. So then I started connecting online and talking to people. Then there was a Facebook group, NRB network, global NRB network, something like that. So from that group, Nasrul Islam Shohan Bhai started the movement of collecting statements from the universities, from all of the Bangladeshi students associations from all of the universities across the world. So I got really involved in this. This was my everyday work. I just wake up and I do collect the statements. I talk to people. Some people sometimes misbehave with me, but that's fine. I just started doing that, and also the connecting with other peoples. Even students from Kazakhstan sent a statement they want Hasina to step on. It was amazing. And I asked, do you, I never knew that there are students, Bangladeshi students there, and they said, yeah, we have a Bangladeshi student association and we want to send a statement to you. And I said, yes, why not? So I was really involved in this movement, and very big universities, all of the big universities came under this umbrella, and they all published these statements. And this was becoming very challenging, because my Facebook post, which was collecting the statements and giving the list, it was being removed by Facebook over and over again. So it was very challenging. But I think till 3rd of August, we collected around 100 statements. It was a massive success. Yeah.
Yeah, altogether, how many universities came forward?
I think it's more. It is more than 100. Around 100, two or three universities came.
Yeah,
mostly from US universities, some from Canada and Kazakhstan, of course. Yeah. So it was big success. But some universities, and the funny thing is, I was getting the information from different universities that they all are fighting inside their community to get the statement out. I knew that it will happen, because I had the same scenario in our university. Some people were totally against that, and some universities where government employees of Bangladesh get the scholarships and go there, they were really against this. And I don't want to mention the names, but it was challenging for them, and people were knocking me, how could you do that? How could you bring out the statement like this? Because we are not able to do that. Our people are so against this. And I told them, yeah, this is the situation of most of the universities. So you have to be really patient, and you have to be very dedicated to that. And it was a big success, and it was amazing. And
thank you for sharing your stories. So far, I remember, most probably you guys collected 103 statements from the University Association from 103 universities, something like that. Yeah, altogether, the story was there. And this is the common story of every community and every country. We fought so hard just to get the platform. And we do have a fascinating story in the controlling the social media group of Australia. Salwa, if you could remember the amount of fight we had between that. I don't know, Zeehan, are you a member of Australian, the Diaspora community Facebook group? We
Not
have
Australia, but I'm in the Melbourne Reform Bangladesh, which the group has changed its name a few times. So I have the whole local politics in Bangladesh, in the Bangladesh community in Melbourne as well. Yeah, I think we saw it throughout. And I just want to touch base on Napu. Sorry, you were saying that, the Bangladesh embassy took pictures. And there's a friend of mine wrote a message, like an article in the New Age BD, and said DC, the embassy of Bangladesh took photographs of demonstrators, recorded their names so they could penalize them when trying to renew their passports and visit families in Bangladesh. And but people still went there, protested regardless. So it's amazing that like you told a story, and I knew that, you know, back home from DC, that there were so many people who just showed up knowing that there would be a risk, and they just did it fearlessly, just like you. So that's such a good, like, I think, oral history that we need to document for ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree with you, Zeehan. And the other thing that the diplomats, they made the problem, especially we had a special situation in UAE and the Middle East,
Yeah.
that they're arresting so many people, the laborers, and also put them in the jail. Salwa and me were that time talking about those histories. So I will go back to you, Salwa. If you could just share a bit about your experience, that how you get involved and what exactly you did, like what were your involvement? What was there? Thank you,
I think,
Salwa.
thank you, Abu. I think a lot of people, when they ask us, why did you get involved? To me, the question is the other way. To me, the question is, how can you not be involved? To me, it's basic human rights. I think growing up overseas, you actually understand the value of your country, that this country is mine. I personally, growing up overseas, again, there is a lot of things that you come across in your life, in your little experiences in life. So, for example, when I see how I always grew up with this feeling that our country does not care about us, honestly. In Saudi Arabia, like, for example, without mentioning names, there are some countries like whenever one of their citizens gets in trouble or any kind of brushing up with the law, their embassy comes forward looking after them, sending delegates, sending people to look after them, right? I never saw that from the Bangladeshi embassy where I grew up. Especially like in the Middle East, there were a lot of women who were in very questionable positions, and I never heard that they received that kind of support, right? So I always felt like our countrymen, as citizens of Bangladesh, we deserve better. That was kind of always instilled inside me. Now, when after the murder of Abu Said, it was for us like the bodies. It kind of made me realize, because I see other countries, like, for example, if even one person is killed in Australia, do you realize the uprising? If Scott Morrison killed one person, do you realize what the uprising is going to be? I remember there was a video of a person where Scott Morrison stood on his mowed lawn, and that person told Scott Morrison, "Can you please walk away?"
So the lawn,
So the respect a citizen gets in any country it's mind-blowing. How our standard of our bar is so low. Like, you can kill someone for a job reform, right? So I think growing up overseas kind of made me make the comparison. Why are the lives of our citizens so undervalued? We're people too, right? You don't get to kill someone over a job reform. You don't get to kill someone for protesting. You don't get to shoot people for just asking for a road safety. You don't rape a mother of four because she voted in the wrong ballot box. Why are our lives so devalued? I think that made me very disheartened, and I was like, I have to go out, right? So on 16th, it was my husband's birthday, and we were just trying to celebrate, and all we could think of, with a cake in front of us on the table, that they just killed an unarmed student, and that should not happen. So we were just looking at the cake, looking at each other, and we were like, okay, this is it. We are going out. So I'm getting very emotional revisiting those days. So we went out, and we went to the gathering of Bangladeshis in Lakemba, and there was a protest. We were like, what are we gonna do, right? And then, as you said, the main group, Bangladeshi groups in Australia, they were kind of not approving our posts and everything. So I kept sending post after post, and none of my posts were approved. I feel like I'm screaming into nothing, right? So I created a new group, and I call it Actions and Events. And I'm like, everything related to actions, I'm just going to organize here. I'm not going to do events myself, but I'm going to organize everything everyone else is doing here, because there were a lot of noise everywhere. So yeah, that's how it started. And another thing about growing up overseas is that I literally have zero colleagues here. Like, none of my school friends are here. None of my university friends are here. I don't have, like, whenever I see my current husband, or, like in Bangladeshi students, everyone has some sort of alumni association they're part of. I have no one, right? So I was like, we have to find people, but I felt like there was we went to Lakemba and we started asking around. And my husband and we met a group when we were talking about them, but we had to make sure that we had the right group. So the first group we met, I was very disheartened that they were talking just like us, but they were like, oh, we cannot say step down Hasina. And I was like, but they just killed someone. They just killed students. And they said, well, yeah, and I'm like, why is your bar so low? And then I said this in Bangla. I said, Ami lutu-putu andolon korbo na. As simple as that, And I said it in that language because I really felt that. Ami andolon korbo, I'm all in. We're not going to do, politically
Correct.
tainted, revolution. In my opinion, that was. And so yeah, that's how it started, and the rest is everything came along. And what I think that surprised me is that the number of people who were really like, we are on the same page, right? And that common feeling, the collective consciousness that we had, and everyone was so not just politically aware. I think it was more of a human rights issue. And the sense of community I felt was really unmatched. Like, it's unmatched. So yeah, that's how it started. And you have been a part of most of it, but probably we'll come back to that state later.
Yeah, thank you, Salwa, for sharing your story. That's true. That for all of us, it was such a emotional turmoil journey. Zeehan, when I was talking with Zeehan is very much involved. She is activist, even in a diaspora community. She's an international activist. She's always in the road for the Palestine movement, for the Black uprising movement in USA. She was there. So I really want to hear from Zeehan that what exactly you feel when the same thing is happening back in your home country. What exactly triggered you, Zeehan?
So this is so interesting to hear from Munapu and Salwa Apu. If I could, I'll give a global perspective of what I was going through, because when July happened, that was already almost six or even 7 months into the whole Palestine movement, right? There's I want the audience to understand that Bangladesh, like for diaspora community, or just people of color around the world, right? And the Bangladeshis living abroad, July uprising happened in the backdrop of a genocide in Palestine. And I think it's really important to recognize that, because a lot of us were activists. I mean, I don't even know the definition of activists, but a lot of us obviously were feeling and doing whatever we could from outside. I'm sure you guys were, for Palestine, because this is like what was happening in Palestine is just unbearable. And to an extent, at that 7 months in, I was already desensitized seeing decapitated babies. I was already desensitized seeing, kids being shot, right? So when I heard about Abu Said, that hit a different chord, I think. So I am used to seeing, it's so sad, and it's so sad to say that I'm used to seeing Palestinians being killed, right? For forever, since I was 10 years old, I'm used to hearing that, right? That oppression. But then hearing that in Bangladesh, happening that in Dhaka, in seeing tanks near Boshuntara city, and seeing things like that, and images was that it hits you differently. And I think what Salwa said, finding that community is so important, especially for us diaspora community. I felt like I was already forming a community with a collective liberation community in Melbourne, with Palestinians, Muslims, LGBTQ community, Jewish community coming together for Sunday rallies on Sundays in Melbourne every day. Among there were so many Bangladeshis, right? So when July happened, there was actually a group of, I think, University of Melbourne, RMIT, Monash University kids, like university students got together and forming a group and literally coming out to the main Parliament station, Parliament building in Victoria in Melbourne. And like, as I quickly found that out and quickly kind of communicating and coordinating it to saying Palestinian rallies is happening on Sunday, please don't do it then. And the local politics is obviously, it's inevitable. I understand that. So if you are not part of a city community activism, right, and you're only in this secluded in Bangladesh, what's happening in Bangladesh, it's hard for you to kind of coordinate with what's happening across Melbourne with Palestinian rallies, with other things. So I think that was very important. And the other thing was, what was really nice to see is within those groups, and I'm sure you guys have come across it, there's a lot of politics about Sheikh Hasina, not Sheikh Hasina, stepping down, not that. And from the outside, you're like, what are you guys talking about? This is not the time. And it was really nice to see some others coming and saying, this is not the time. Can we please be united? Can we please form one protest at this one time? At that point, there was like 4 or 5 protests, and that's not effective. If you're really one united, people united will never be defeated. If you really want that kind of activism happening, all the Bangladeshis have to be united in a diaspora community. And it was hard to see that, but I do want to say the Melbourne community did come together. There was some criticism here and there, but they did come together. They had hundreds of people at one point protesting and with their Bangladesh flag, and it was so the same way we were seeing Shahidul Alam taking pictures of Palestine flag and Bangladesh flag, we were seeing that in Melbourne, and the same. So it kind of brought that collective consciousness. So when Salwa, you were saying I was finding that community, I was disheartened to see the Bangladeshi community in Melbourne not protesting for Palestine. But then when I saw this July happen, I saw all the Bangladeshis coming together and then learning about other things. It's the inspiration I got. And I think I also want to say that growing up, Salwa, I don't know if you felt the same way. Our access to Bangladesh politics was always through our parents, because it's hard for me to read Bangla. I was telling Parul, but it's hard to get access to that kind of information in Bangladesh, right? So we're watching BBC on Al Jazeera, and then we can maybe read some of the English news articles in Bangladesh, but we're kind of detached. And I think what connected it is the decentralization of information, right? So you had Bangladeshi students, the Gen Zs, like just throwing like just the amazing memes that is connecting the community in the diaspora, right? Like they were cartoonists like Tonmoy. There were so many amazing cartoonists and memes that they were spreading. And I feel like if there's one thing I did, just passing that information. Again, I think one of you, we had that discussion in the chat saying, if the Bangladesh internet goes down, you diaspora are our voices. And if there was anything, as much as on Facebook and on WhatsApp group, like as much as on in our public profile, what we did, there was so much happening in the background. There was so much messenger, exchange of, hey, what's happening? I have a family there. Someone saying, hey, I'm there. If anyone needs a safe place there, give this address, give this number. And all I did, and so many of people like me, like who's not part of the Bangladesh politics, who hasn't grown up in Bangladesh, all we did is just spread it like wildfire. And I think that, like, I'm so proud that I've been part of part of that I can tell my two kids that I couldn't do anything. You know, my hands were tied being in Melbourne, but at least what we did is we decentralized the information. We just passed it from DC to Melbourne to Bangladesh to anywhere, that people knew anyone they could connect. And you just realize how small the world is with decentralization of information. You realize how collectively we can come together. And sorry, I'm keeping going back to Palestine, but I think one of the beautiful things I've learned in the Palestinian community is the Palestinians in Palestine and the Palestinian diaspora, because they have 3 generations of oppression. They are so connected. They know how to spread the word. They are so connected. Their Palestinian Americans knows exactly what to say to hit a nerve for Americans. And I think I saw that in July. I think for the first time, I saw the Bangladeshi diaspora community and the Bangladeshis, the Gen Zs, you know, in Bangladesh, were able to do this incredible connection without our parents, without our Tumi Beshi Botona, you know, without that, we were able to, you know, dismantle the whole effing thing, you know, this step, you know, just that remember that Noy Dafa theke ek dafa, like how powerfully the diaspora community was able to say that. And so one of the things, you know, Munapo, it's so great to hear that you had 100 like universities around the world. One of the little thing that we did, I got everyone I knew from London to, you know, San Francisco to DC to Melbourne to Sydney. We did like little videos of we stand with the Bangladeshi people. And that, like, I think, like, even if it's not universities, a lot of us are working professionals. I just wanted to get those, like, just to, there was a point where we couldn't see anything, right? And it was like a complete blank. And then how could we spread information, keep the information flowing? And we did, like, I got, editor friend of mine who basically put together, and none of us wanted to share our names because we all work in federal governments and state governments, and we just, like, it was anonymous. No one wanted to take credit. We just wanted to spread the word out. We just, you know, had, you know, did a small video, asked everybody to do a small video to say we stand with Bangladesh or Bangladeshi students. And then just like started just putting those videos out. Even things like I'm Muslim, I'm Hindu, I'm Christian, I'm Buddha, you know, but we are Bangladeshis, even when after the uprising, what happened. We just kept releasing these videos that just could spread. I think there was a lot of misinformation, and there was a lot of Army League, you know, diaspora community that was spreading a lot of misinformation. And it was just to defeat that, you had to do that. It was a war within itself in online community. And if anything, we were part of that. And this is the thing, like, I feel like I did nothing, but I think it's like that one person doing one little thing, keep sharing. And imagine, multiply that with thousands and thousands of Bangladeshi diaspora. And I found that incredible connection. And this is why I would love to keep that connection between the Bangladeshi, you know, Bangladeshi students and Gen Zs to us. It's such an incredible and powerful connection that we can keep growing. And I hope it doesn't dissolve. I hope we can keep going to create that beautiful connection that I've seen in other communities, to bring about collective liberation. And I'll just end with one little thing. You know, how Munapu, you were saying that, you know, someone from Kazakhstan reached out to you. I had my friend from Kenya, from university days, emailing, like messaging me saying, hey, what happened in Bangladesh is incredible. We have student protests in Kenya, but there's police brutality and it just died down. We couldn't do anything. But when I saw you guys, what you guys did, it just inspired me. I had an Iranian friend messaging me. And like I follow so many Palestinian journalists. I saw Palestinian journalists, you know, stating Bangladesh now, Bangladesh today, Palestine tomorrow. And that kind of collective consciousness as marginalized people, as people of, you know, we're all colonized people of some way or the other, coming together. And to me, from that global perspective, Bangladesh was hope. Bangladesh was truly what the Gen Zs did, was such a hope. So to me, what I take out of that is two things. One is the connection, the bridge we were able to create between the communities, and also from a very global perspective, how Bangladesh was able to give that hope. And it's continuing to give that hope in my humble opinion. I know there's a lot, we can go into a lot of criticism, but from very global perspective, Bangladesh has, like, in Palestine rallies, they mention Bangladesh. So to see that and to be representative of that and to work with the global community to bring that back, I think is such a powerful tool that we can use moving forward.
Oh, thank you, Zeehan. That was really fascinating. The way you described the entire thing. It's like, frankly speaking, you did my job. You just completely packed the whole idea and the whole idea of the way that we diaspora connected. That's true. Though, if you ask me to pick up one thing, I would pick up this collectivism, the collective conscious that we shared and we represent. That's the one thing. Like nowadays, after this uprising, so many questions was coming. Is the uprising failed? Did you feel? No. What we did on these 21 days, that was amazing. We achieved that. So there is no question about failing among this on one that 36 days, 36th of July. Aftermath is aftermath. That is the aftermath calculation. That doesn't have any connection with that uprising stories. So this is very important, that this collective connection and the way we responded to the event, the way we reconnected. That's the reason I ask you guys in here. So I will go back to Muna a very short way, that your understanding, that's it's true. Zeehan packed up almost everything. Again, to your understanding, Muna, the challenges we faced, right? That's true that the army regime and their political narrative always is there. One word Zeehan bring out, that's in online, basically, that was a war we were fighting. No doubt about it. War against misinformation, war against disinformation. And the most interestingly, on that day, we went to one invitation to one of our, in Melbourne, one of our big brother. And he was telling that politics is a fight between two narratives. That exactly what I feel the entire July uprising. We were constantly fighting to build up our narratives, to fight their narratives. If I go with this question to Muna and Salwa, both of you, Muna, I want to start with you. How did you perceive? What was the war that you fight on the online war? Muna.
So, the war has, even the online war had multiple fronts. Like one front was fighting with the platform itself. Facebook continuously put the post down again and again when I post the list of the universities whose Bangladeshi Students Associations published the statement of Step Down Hasina. And it was a very tiring job. I knew I would post it again if they remove it, but they removed and removed. I posted and posted again and again. And it was one front. Another front was the small fights every community had. And I was getting the information. I was facing the same war. Some people were very were very apologetic to the regime, and they were sharing the informations in the community. And I don't usually speak much in the group chat of the community, but when they share something, I had to put my narrative. And again and again, it was becoming a kind of a war situation in every group chat, and I knew people were getting very irritated by my continuous replies, but I felt that it's fine, they can be irritated, but they have to know the right situation. They have to know what is misinformation, what is not. So this was another fight. And there were some petty things targeting for personal reasons, which actually hampered the whole movement in one way or another. But I know that this can happen. So there were multiple fronts of the online war and the narratives. I don't usually post on Facebook that much, but starting from July 18th, I started just writing Step Down Hasina. That's it. I don't want anything else. And we can't afford to have this kind of regime who has so much blood in their hand. It was just that. And the funny thing is, when I wrote on 18th or 19th July that step down Hasina, only 1 or 2% reacted. Then after 1 or 2 days, the reactions were coming, coming and coming, and then it became a norm. So, and people were kind of getting comfortable with sharing these thoughts. So the first step was important. When you say step down Hasina, some other people feel kind of fearless to do the same thing. So yeah, so there were multiple fronts actually.
Yeah, true. Completely agree. There were multiple forms, and we were fighting with the Facebook group, WhatsApp group, with our like managing the timing, fighting with our emotion, fighting with our practicality, everyday earning, going office, at the same time creating the narrative, fighting the narrative of $1 billion investment army narrative. That was the main thing, that we were volunteer, but whom we were fighting, they were not volunteer. Millions of dollars is there, bot is there. Salwa, I really want to hear from you. What about, like, what was your perception regarding this war between these two narratives and information war? That was, frankly speaking, actually this information war we fought in this entire July. Salwa, sorry about that. I'm just really missing your name spelling. Yeah, Salwa, I really go on that to you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think with the, like Monaco said, like there were a lot of confrontations happening on multiple fronts. So for us, for example, like we noticed something because I had that action group. We're trying to organize, look after all the groups. Every time I see someone posting a group, whether it's been Brisbane, Melbourne, I kept posting it in the group. So what I noticed that there were, like you said, there were a lot of acts of sabotage happening. So every time a big group happens, there was a small group, tiny group happening somewhere close enough, right? So I noticed that there was like some, some deliberate acts of sabotage. So that was a fight on the ground. So I got to a point reaching out to them, and I told them directly, why are you guys organizing events so close to other events to divert the audience, right? So that was the first thing. So I've seen like every time someone was trying to organize a big group, some kind of act of sabotage happened. So that was kind of one front on the ground. The other one was basically online. So I think all of us literally, like when we, during that July, we woke up thinking, okay, now what can I do next, right? We never ran out of ideas. For me personally, I was like, okay, now I have to put a website and do it out there. The ICC case, okay, should we go to ICC? And we start doing that. We did, because I did not have any experience, the first thing I did was going to a media strategist. And I asked her, because from a global perspective, I asked her, how do you see what's happening in Bangladesh, and how can we bring, how can we capture the attention of the Australian audience? Because we were applying for permits different places and we were not getting them, right? Because no one knew what is happening in Bangladesh, right? So then we started a petition, and we did say, Bangladeshi Australian families are worried about their loved ones back in Bangladesh. And this one during the lockdown, during the blackout. And we received thousands of emails sent to every single senator and a state representative in Australia. And many of you, like, we did a QR code, we went to the events, and we got thousands of signatures. The beautiful thing for that was that we had this screen where we could see where everyone signed from, and we could see signatures all across Australia. We saw one from Alice Springs, one from Tasmania, like middle of nowhere. Like we were like, do Bangladeshis live in Alice Springs? But apparently they do. And then again, another thing that kind of, seeing everyone coming together, also everyone was coming together on the ground. So for me, the fight was on different levels, but I received help in every single step. I was not alone in anything. I never felt lonely for once. For example, the movements we did, like eventually when we started with like with a small group, but eventually what happened, for example, when one of our senior appus here, she saw what we were doing with the petitions, and then she said that I'm gonna help you take it global. And then we started UK, Canada, USA, and Australia. So we were doing 4 countries now, and we went to a global movement. And then after that, the senior brothers here in the community, they were like, okay, we are going to organize events for you. And they connected us with senators and public representatives here in Australia. Then our younger student brothers, they took all the posters and they started distributing, they started organizing which song we're going to put in the protest, how we're going to do. So I think that there was confrontations on multiple fronts, but this kind of, there was also unity in every single step of the way. And that was kind of really inspiring. Another thing I would say is that for us, we did have at some point, it almost felt, especially like in between July, like end of July, when the movement was kind of seemed a bit dim. So like there was a fear of safety. But again, I feel like someone said, and this is like someone said that, if we try to save ourselves, everyone was going to be in danger. And that was very important. So yeah, I think with like we fought on every single possible front, even on a social level. I think a lot of people don't talk about this. When I was working with the students, what a lot of people don't realize, the students who were on the streets in overseas, they still had to go to school. They still had to pay for university. They still had to pay rent. They still had to go to their jobs. They still had to do everything. And I was like, how are you guys managing all that? It's hard enough with inflation. It's hard enough for established families. How are you managing all that? There are a lot of fronts that we had to fight. One of the fronts we had to fight for was the social service section. So we were trying to, reach out to, we didn't have to do it. Like we did not have to, go on with that movement, but it's something that did take our time, which is we had to contact universities and ask them, like this is happening in Bangladesh. If students cannot pay their fees, their visas will be canceled. So we want to make sure that didn't happen. I personally reached out to food banks and asked them, okay, if we don't need it yet, but if we come to a situation where, our students cannot bring money from back home, will we have any support from you? Right? I reached out to business owners here in Australia and I asked them, if I want you to pay a Bangladeshi restaurant, will you allow them, ask them to prepare, provide this support for our students? So we did fight on different fronts, on different levels, but like I can say, we're starting from food banks all the way to ICC, and everywhere we did receive help, and there was unity at every step.
Seriously, all those stories and going back, it's just giving me goosebumps. And yeah, frankly speaking, I am really fortunate enough that we have seen this uprising. At the same time, we are unfortunate enough that we had to see that many of bloodshed. But yeah, I cannot just control myself to sharing a small story of mine. Darwin is a small city. At that time, I was in Darwin, so we are a really small community. Within one day notice, more than 200 people gathered together in front of the Parliament House. That was such a amazing thing. The most thing was I was not the coordinator, because I was spending so much time in online. I was spending so much time for coordinating or collecting information from Bangladesh. So it wasn't possible for me to play the coordinator role in Darwin also. Surprisingly, everything happened organically. 2 or 3 member of the community just volunteered themselves in such a dedicated way and organized everything within 24 hours notice. Basically, mostly that was 18-hour notice. We gathered 200 people in front of parliament. The one thing touched me, the way people was crying, especially we had a gathering that was on 4th of August. I couldn't control myself. You, like Zeehan, know I give really good slogan. But the way the women were crying, the diaspora women crying, the same thing I heard the story from Canada, the story I heard from Lakamba, and there we cried. That's true, we cried. We cried for our brother. That one thing we were able to do. Zeehan, I will go to you like the entire time, especially when the internet blocked out happening. I really want to hear from you. You were telling that, okay, like the way we were passing the information, it was like the information bomb. Every single information, every single video document was important. I really want to hear from you because you were maintaining a connection between, you were staying in Melbourne, but maintaining a connection between your, within your DC community, Washington DC community. Can you please share a little bit of your story on that time, the internet blackout time, and
Yeah.
the fear that you observe?
Yeah, and I'll just start by saying, Parul, you were like just, broadcasting, live broadcast, which I just shared like wildflower to basically everyone I knew, right? I had people, my friends, my cousins, messaging me saying, what's happening? Do you know anybody? And, I don't have a lot, like it's, if I have 1,000 Facebook friends, it'll be probably like 300 Bangladeshis, but among them were you guys, right? Among them were you, Parul, among them were my sister and some others who are actively doing something or, posting things that I couldn't otherwise see. And one of the things I feel like a lot of people were waiting for information, like what is happening there? Can you tell us? Like anyone knows? I wasn't able to talk to my parents, that everybody is familiar with that noise that was coming out when you talk to your loved ones in from Bangladesh, right? We didn't know anything. So we were just communicating online, like who knows what. I had a friend who lives in Melbourne and was in Bangladesh that time, were like messaging and putting stories up saying, this is a safe house. This is the number, give it to anybody who is in this area in Dhanmondi or in this area of somewhere else in Palupi or somewhere else. And so we were just, all we did literally just pass that information. And I'll just give another story of in my DC community. People were coming together and there were all these like things, someone had, Abhaya had put together, same thing, I think, Salwa, that you were involved in, like basically a Google Doc with all the information, click of a button, who is your, representative, who to write. But I think one of the most beautiful things that was happening organically, because we were not just in the context of Bangladesh, we were context of a global movement, global solidarity movement of against oppressors, whether that, whoever that is. We were talking about, okay, we need to pressure American government, or we need to pressure our senators and congressmen and women to do this. But at the same time, on the same breath, we were asking, who is America to give, like, who are we kidding? We are asking America to stop, to sanction Bangladesh or to stop, who are we asking? This is the same government who is literally supplying and enabling a genocide. So the conversation was not the old politics that we are used to, like, okay, your enemy's enemy is our friend. It was organic. It was people coming together saying, hey, let's think strategically in what we should do. We really should be united at front with the diaspora community, but let's not like put all our efforts in trying to convince Bangladesh, the representatives and senators trying to like help us, because we don't want their help. We can do this on our own. So that was beautiful. I think that was so powerful. When we take the power from the powerful politicians and we put it on ourselves. we boycott, we and I think that was an interesting thing that was going on. There were diaspora community from Harvard alumni who were putting together something. They were like, okay, we got all the package, just pass this link to everybody, whoever needs it. I took that link and sent it to the Melbourne community, who was talking about, hey, can we automate something? And I was like, no need. This is all the information, just use this. So I think because things are not centralized, there were a lot of duplicate of information, duplicate of work, but because it was decentralized, we were just sending messages saying, hey, no need to do this. Somebody has already created this. And so just build on top of it, but also build on top of it in your community. You don't necessarily need to, there were things happening in Melbourne. Talking about student visa, Bangladeshi students were scared to come out in protest because their visa could be revoked. Right. And how could we work on that? Like wear masks, wear glasses, and just, make sure that you're not identified, like all these information. And it was a very organized, organic organization of people coming together protesting. And it was, these information are information who people who have had activism experience could just pay it forward and give it to people who you don't have to learn from scratch. You don't have to do things from scratch. This is how you get a permit. This is how you just go and say that, we are doing, like in the world of ChatGPT, you know how to write to get a permit. You know how to write to, these are information that you can just share, and it multiplies by your impact is so much more stronger because you're all connected across the diaspora community. So while Bangladesh was in a blackout, everybody, friends from Canada, America, everywhere was getting together and saying, what can we do? And everybody, Salwa, you were like, we were never out of ideas. And there were so many things we were doing. And then one day we just heard Sheikh Hasina left, and we're like, oh, okay, we can't do that. Let's talk about other things. Let's talk, it was just the ideas, they were never short of ideas. And that hope, that resilience and that hope was never away. And especially when you realize that, oh, I can be part of it too. Because I remember, Parul, you used to say you're always involved in politics, right? And I'm like, okay, this goes way over my head. I can't do those politics. That's just so, like, you have to know so much local politics to actually be active in that. And I can't do that. But I love this new form of activism, new form of like just completely fresh thinking. I remember there was a post which became the manifesto of Bangladesh Constitution, I think, like post of like, hey, I don't know if you guys remember, it was like a post of whatever you want for the new Bangladesh, write it here. And it was like hundreds and hundreds of comments of like, I want decentralization of public health, and this is what I can do. I want this. And it just became this beautiful English Bangla thread that I was reading through, and just so much tears of joy seeing everybody coming together, when in fact just a few years ago it was all about Bangladeshi kichu hobe na, from the diaspora community, ki korbo Bangladeshi, ki hobe. And I used to get so irritated. It's like my pet peeves when I go to a Bangladesh party or a gathering, and when I hear these older generation, and maybe I'm not talking about my parents' generation, like even just a few years, bhaiya apus of older than me, Parul, maybe your age, like just like ki hobe Bangladeshi, ar kichu hobe na. That failure, and I never could vibe with that, right? So just to see this uprising from the Gen Zs, it completely changed everything. It completely, like what they did, I am so thankful. Like, yeah, I don't know, like what they have done for the diaspora community and vice versa. I think it was so organic. I genuinely think it is something that we're going to study. And I hope we get to have this oral history documented to talk about this, because what's going to happen is this is going to go away, no one's going to document this because it was so organic. And it is not something that we are writing it down, yes, in papers, but this kind of podcast and documentation is so important for our future generation.
That's true. The main part. The most beautiful part from this uprising was, just you mentioned, Zeehan, the resistance and the hope. the both came together. The amount of resistance they showed, the same amount of hope we get inside of us. And the beauty of this movement was this collectivism and the organic thing. It was a fully organically organized. That's the way. Sometimes it looks like it's a chaos, complete chaos. That's the beauty of this organically organized event. Anyway, we talked, I think, more than 1 hour. Thank you so much, Muna. Thank you so much, Salwa. Thank you so much, Zeehan. It was really privileged for me to talk with you today. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, whoever is listening, will listen to us. Thank you from Nuraldeen part. Thank you all. Talk to you later.